Hello and welcome to episode 160 of the Brass Junkies. I'm your host, Andrew Hitz, and I'm joined by the lovely, talented, and insightful Lance LaDuke. Lance, how are you?
I'm touched by this episode.
Right?
I was very grateful that she was so generous in sharing these incredibly personal and sometimes painful stories.
We were joined by Nicole Cash, who is the former third horn of the Dallas Symphony and associate principal of the San Francisco Symphony. And as you will hear, her journey took a very unexpected turn, a very human turn. We won't spoil anything if you don't know her story, but she's one of the best horn players I've ever had the privilege of playing with. And is just an amazing human. So I think you're going to all really enjoy. She's just got so much humility. She's wonderful. So yeah, I adore her. And as you'll hear, she and I go way back.
I might have oversold it being it's not a downer episode. It was a very generous episode and I think an inspirational one.
Yes,
but it's a serious one. So
yep.
But there's still cake. So there's that.
There is cake. And you know what else there is, Lance? You know what I figured out? I was like, you know what I need? I need another project. So I've started another project.
Oh, good.
It is called Inside the Practice Room, which you can find out more at InsideThePracticeRoom.com. My first guest is Jeff Nelson of the Canadian Brass, who is obviously one of the best horn players in the world. He is joining me on Tuesday, April 20th at 8 p.m. Eastern. And there's a discount code, which you can just go to the website. You'll see it all right there. But this is going to be, I'm really excited about this. I'm going to be hitting up people of all different instruments. It's going to be an hour-long thing, and it's going to be him taking us inside of his practice room space. He's going to talk to us about how he sets it up, how he organizes his practicing, have him actually show us how he practices a lick, like talk about the mental approach, the physical approach, like all of the above. So we're going to get to actually eavesdrop on one of the great horn players of his generation practicing. So that's going to be InsideThePracticeRoom.com.
Wow.
We've got a listener survey, pedalomedia.com/survey. We are keeping the survey open for this week. If you're hearing this when this is released, to let us know, about your relationship with the Brass Junkies. And if you take the time to do that, we're going to choose one. We will announce this on the next episode. There's going to be one person who wins a $100 Amex gift card, who takes them. There's been already a bunch of people who've taken that. So thank you to everybody who did that.
90, I think. Yeah,
that's awesome.
It's really helpful for us. You know what I forgot to tell you is that Houchin Horns aims to spread the joy of music through providing the highest level of products, services, and resources to the brass playing community. Furthermore, Moreover, Houchin Horns is a premier brass pro shop with an impressive lineup of the best instruments, accessories, sheet music, and more. They have newly expanded policies that make it easier to purchase and test drive the best equipment during a time when safety and staying home are top priorities. One of those is a top priority for me at all times. 15-day money-back guarantee with free shipping on all new instruments and accessories with multiple easy financing options on all inventory. Terms and conditions apply. You know, they also do repairs and customizations in-house. You can browse vintage and consignment instruments at houchinhorns.com. They have free in-person virtual equipment consultations with their team of professional musicians. And if you enter the promo code Junkies11, that's Junkies11, at online checkout, you will receive $500 off your purchase of a new instrument from houchinhorns.com. Thank you to them for being a sponsor.
And without further ado, we had Nicole stick around for a bonus episode. If you want to find out more about that, you can go to patreon.com/thebrassjunkies, where you also get a whole lot of regular bonus content from us that's completely aside from the show. And there's a bonus episode with every guest. And we heard a great story from her in the bonus episode about something about a gig that went horrifically wrong, which is that always makes us laugh. Anyway, Patreon, you can find out more info there. And without further ado, no more adoing, let's get to our conversation with horn player Nicole Cash. Today on the Brass Junkies, we are joined by one of the best horn players that I have ever had the pleasure of playing with, and also a wonderful person. Her name is Nicole
Nice.
No, this is we've known each other for how many years? Like it's like well over. It's like getting close to 30 years. So I butcher her name. Nicole Cash Sachs. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. Of course. I mean, we're so honored that I couldn't even get your name right. Actually, it was the fact that it's like I know you by your maiden name, which, and so I felt pressure there and I just folded. That's okay. It's not going to be the last time.
The honest truth is that I don't really go by Sachs at all. I mean, I have it up there. That was like a little nod to my husband. Like,
oh, so that's easier then. So I could have just said Nicole Cash. See, there you go. That wouldn't have been awkward.
That's all husbands are usually looking for is a little nod.
A little nod.
That'll do. Did I screw up? No, you're all right. Keep moving.
I'm already concerned that before the interview started that Nicole and Lance had never met before, but they already were comfortable enough to be teaming up on me. So I'm not usually, if the person doesn't know Lance, I think, well, maybe I have the advantage here, but I think I've miscalculated.
Barrel, fish, barrel.
So Nicole and I went to Northwestern together a long time ago. I think you were 1 year behind me, I believe. Yep. So, and then we did NRO together, and then you went and got like orchestra famous like right after that. So, and then I went the easier route, the brass quintet route. So where you're just graded on like, enthusiasm. So, so for those of you who don't know who Nicole is, she became the first black horn player in a major symphony orchestra like anywhere when she joined the Dallas Symphony, and that was in 1999.
No, that was in 2001.
2001. Like I said, it was in 2001. Actually, your bio is kind of hard to find. I found one that said that you were that you are like 30 something years old.
I saw that somewhere, and I was like, "That's awesome!"
Oh,
yeah, right.
Really a prodigy.
That bio. I can't even remember which website it was on, but it said that you studied music at Northwestern and Rice University, which is where you switched from piano to horn.
Whoa, okay, I haven't seen that one.
Yeah. So it was like some kind of, it looked like it was almost like an AI generated type thing, but like a lot of it was right. But then like, I was like, well, that's not true. I was like, wait, was she like 11 when she got to Northwestern and she was just like really, really put together and none of us noticed? Like, no, I don't think that
was it.
Yeah,
that was
what I heard. I read that on the internet actually.
And then she joined the San Francisco Symphony in 2009,
right?
And so well, let's go back to the beginning here. You grew up in right down the street from me, right, in Annandale.
Yeah, and, well, you're from Boston, right? So you're talking like the long street.
Well,
right?
I live in Fairfax County now.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
For the last like 17 years. So
yes, that's right. I did forget that. That's
yeah,
right. Yeah.
Yep. Well, I butchered your name, which isn't even your name, and now you forget we're even now. So it's the scorecard is straight. I gotta know, how well did you and Jen Montone know each other? Because you're the same year, right? And you grew up like
she's actually a year younger than me. So Jennifer and I met when I was in 8th grade and she was in 7th grade. We've known each other so long, like forever.
I figured as much because you're both monsters and you grew up like, I mean, what, less than 10 miles apart.
Yes. Yeah. So we met in like all district band. And I was first chair, she was second chair, and that was pretty much the situation from the rest of
nice flex
for the rest of our life. I know until she, really like
she landed on her feet.
Yeah, she's doing okay for herself. So so we've known each other for a very long time. Youth orchestra and Brass of Peace and summer festivals and all that.
Wow. Very cool.
I'd like to think I have some part in her being as good as she is.
When we interviewed her, she credited you like 4 or 5 times.
That's all we talked about. I was sick of hearing your name.
We cut out most of them because she kept repeating herself.
Again. Seriously.
She's not too articulate, so it's like she's yeah. Love you, Jen. So talk to us about getting into the Dallas Symphony. What was that like?
Well, I mean, so that audition happened halfway through my second master's year at Rice. And I remember feeling like I remember deciding very last minute to just do it. I mean, I had decided to do it. I sent in my resume and but I didn't feel prepared, and I thought maybe I just shouldn't even go. And and then at the last second I was like, just go. It's it's a 4-hour drive, and it'll be some good experience. And things just kind of, I don't know, I think I got lucky with what they picked to to ask me, and I played well, and I won the job. And I just kind of cruised through the rest of my year at Rice, and pretty much right after moved up to Dallas and played the summer season with them. And it was strange because I was such a baby. And actually Jennifer was there already. Speaking of like following each other everywhere, I'm just going to get as many mentions of her in my interview as she did of me. Yeah, we were just little babies there. I remember just kind of feeling very in between in Dallas, because I would party like at SMU. I met some kids that were in grad school at SMU, and I was like, I feel more comfortable here than I do hanging out with my colleagues. So, it was an interesting way to start off the career. I sometimes thought it would have been nicer to start in like a little smaller, younger orchestra, just to kind of acclimate to the culture.
So you said the day the cards fell the right way in terms of the rep that they asked you to play. So if you remember, like, how did that day go where they picked a tune and you're like, oh, cool. And then did your confidence continue to go up, or you just sort of stayed in the moment?
I remember that they were auditioning for both associate principal and third. And so there were a lot of candidates, and that was a 2-day process they had. And then in fact, on the first day for prelims, they were doing it in 2 different rooms. There were that many players. So I remember my prelim, they weren't asking the concerto. And for some reason there was some kind of mixed communication, and I thought they were. So I like loaded in with the entry to Strauss 1. Bum, ba, ba. And they're like, wait, stop.
But I'm really good at this one.
No, I always announce my presence that way.
That was just my warm up. That's just how I warm up. Those are my
testing the room
notes. So maybe that broke the ice. I don't know. I kind of like, and I don't even remember. God, it was so long ago. I don't remember what they asked, but I just remember that, how there's always maybe 1 or 2 excerpts. You got to go, hon. My daughter, Lila.
Go climb some rocks.
Yeah, go, Lila. Go, please.
Okay.
Okay. Bye-bye. Have fun.
My child has never interrupted one of these interviews, sure. And I think it's very unprofessional.
I keep trying to get mine to, but they're in their 20s.
Quite frankly, so. I don't have
pulling out the technicalities on me, Nicole.
So how there's like 1 or 2 excerpts where like, this is probably one of the ones I've had to work the most on, and sometimes it goes great, and there are times, the ones that we don't feel quite as comfortable with. And I think I just got lucky in that they didn't ask any of those. But yeah, my first round, I remember being like, it could go either way. It was a strong round, but definitely not perfect. But I did advance, and then I was like, okay, all right, that's cool. They liked what I was bringing. And so then the next day for, I guess it was semis, I just felt more confident and felt better. I'd had a good night of sleep, played well. And then after that round, I think is when they kind of separated us up into whether they were hearing us for the associate job or the third job. And I went into it knowing that I really would have preferred the third job, but I wasn't going to take myself out of the running for anything. But they thought they wanted to hear me for third as well. So I don't know, I guess that felt good too, kind of like, hey, they see what my strengths are. And and then by the time the curtain came down, I think I just really hit a stride, and was kind of in the zone of being able to do the different things that they asked me to do. And I don't know, it, like I said, it was a long time ago, but I remember really feeling really good by the time the final round came around. I feel like this was my job to win, and I did.
Pretty great.
So you got lucky.
Yeah.
Well, and then how did that experience differ from the San Francisco experience, if at all?
You know, to be honest, I've never really kind of thought about it that way, but I think it was kind of similar. Like I think my first round, I know I got pushed into the semis automatically. And I remember feeling like, oh, I don't know. I remember playing and I was like, you know, some things went well. And again, it wasn't my best representation, but it was good playing and it was musical. But I remember coming out and being like, that's not going to be good enough for the San Francisco Symphony, and being like, where can I get a martini? And they were like, just hold on. And you know how the proctors and the monitors have a better sense of how everyone else has been doing. And later on, the personnel manager told me, she's like, no, I knew you were gonna move on. And so same thing. And God, that was a grueling day. I think I played in like the 10 o'clock hour that morning, and I don't think the audition was over till like 10:15 or 10:30 that night. And
Wow.
you know, I was on my teeth by the end for sure, but I just felt like, you know, I felt like it was mine to win at that point. I think that's maybe that's just a good feeling. That's a good sign when you have that feeling in the audition process, when you're like, this is mine to win, you know?
Wow.
That's pretty good.
It's fascinating to me that for both of those auditions that you didn't feel that at the beginning of the day, that it went fine, could have gone either way, / where can I get a martini? And that's kind of like somebody like, well, I'm sure you're not going to want a second date with me. And the person's like, relax, like don't say anything stupid in the last 5 minutes.
We just got out of the car.
Yeah, like
well, and honestly, I have to say that was another audition where I was kind of like, should I even go? Because that year I had I had played a couple of times as guest principal with St. Louis Orchestra, and then I auditioned, and I really, well, here's an example where I really thought that was my job for the taking, and I didn't get it. And I'd really had my heart set on it, to be honest. Like I was doing the whole, like I was envisioning my life there. I was looking at house listings. Maybe some people say that's jinxing it, but for me, I felt that was kind of like, you know, kind of a mental game that I played with myself to positively affect the outcome of
Make it more real.
Right. Like I guess some people do vision boards or something. So that was kind of like what I did. I looked at real estate listings, and
that's Andrew's vision board behind him right now.
that's a lot of people. That's a lot of people's vision board.
I got no vision.
I got no mortgages.
I've got a very clear vision of how I would like Lance to change as a colleague and as a human, but that's the extent of my vision. Yeah.
And that's it, Lance. That's it.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, I know.
So anyway, so that audition in St. Louis, I don't know, it was probably in March or April, and I was really kind of crushed when I didn't get that job. And the audition for San Francisco was like really toward the end of the season. I was kind of tired. I was looking forward to the summer and just kind of like putting it away for a little bit, because it had been kind of a grueling year. And again, so I was like, should I even go? And I was like, just go. You know, you're ready. Like you're playing well. You're like, you've been at the top of your game this whole season because of all these things you've been doing. So just go and play. And then, yeah, it was a pretty similar scenario.
You know, we've had a number of folks on who have won multiple jobs, and I don't remember talking about this, which is, how do you do your job that you have a gig? So how do you do that job and then get ready for this other job at the same time? Like, how do you train in such a way that you don't mess up your main gig, but you're still ready to go with the other one?
I just did a lot of late night practicing. I did a lot of practicing after concerts. So, you're tired
Mm-hmm.
but you're definitely still warmed up, but you're not gonna like blow your blow your chops out before you have to go and perform on
Mm-hmm.
stage. And I guess, I mean, honestly, if you think about it, like what better way to prepare for a final round where you've been playing all day, you've been playing round after round, you're tired, you're on your teeth, you're physically and mentally tired. So that was just what I did. I'm sure my neighbors love me.
I think
Mhm.
I think that's really important. That I, if you can only do well when you're fresh,
Yeah.
then you're in trouble.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the orchestra life too, because when do you ever feel fresh again once you start an orchestra gig? Like
Hmm.
never.
Right.
You're always exhausted. You're always tired. You're always, trying to prep the next week's rep the same week that you're performing this other difficult rep. So, man, enjoy school, guys.
You know what else we haven't really unpacked is somebody who has had success at the level that you have at auditions, but then maybe if we could dig just a little bit deeper, if you don't mind, into the St. Louis audition. Like we don't
Mhm.
usually talk about the ones that don't go well,
Once
especially
it got away.
bookended by like, such big wins. So what
Well, you
what
know
was
what?
different?
St. Louis, nothing. St. Louis went really well. I was really crushed when I didn't win it because I had played really well.
Hmm.
But, they I was up against Roger Causa in the final round, so like I don't really feel that bad about who I lost to because he's a beast.
Right.
Um and he had also done some weeks playing guest with the orchestra. So
Right.
really, they were in a fantastic situation. They had two players who played really good auditions and two players who they'd had really great experience with playing in the orchestra. I mean, I had played I played 2 weeks and then I actually went on they did like a domestic tour and they invited me to come on that after I lost the audition. Like they clearly were like, it's not personal. We love your playing. We just think
Hmm.
Roger is the better fit for us. And
Hmm.
Roger had played one of his weeks. I think he did what did he do? I think he did like Bruckner. He did a big Bruckner or a Mahler with David Robertson conducting. None of my weeks were with the music director. And I'm not saying that's why I didn't get the job, but that's some good exposure. And the music director felt really good with him and really comfortable with him. So no, it didn't. I played really well at that audition, and I was really, I at that point was still feeling like this is my job for the taking, but it just didn't go that way.
Hmm.
So I
There's
was crushed, but I didn't feel like I hadn't done my best.
yeah, there's
It
a
was like that whole saying of like they were buying something else that day. They were shopping for something else that day.
so much that's out of our control in those situations.
Yeah.
Control everything leading up to it, including like practicing late at night after playing Dallas Symphony concerts. But
Yeah.
then on the
Yeah.
day of, there's a lot that we don't control.
Yeah.
So we're going to switch gears here. Before we do, I wanted to very quickly thank Parker Mouthpieces for providing the hosting for the Brass Junkies. Parker Mouthpieces, who Michael Parker went to Northwestern with
Great.
Nicole as well. Parker Mouthpieces offers fine customizable component mouthpieces for horn, trombone, euphonium, and tuba, including the Andrew Hitz artist model tuba mouthpiece and the Lance LaDuke model euphonium mouthpiece.
Whoa, that's awesome.
Find out more at parkermouthpieces.com or follow them on Facebook,
Wow.
Instagram, and Twitter. I'm guessing actually if we gave her a second to think about it, and I'm not going to do this, but I bet Nicole could probably come up with a specific story involving both Parker and myself doing stupid things at the same time in her presence, because there's a
Mhm. Just
large
one?
pool.
How long's the show?
Like I said, moving right. I mean, both Michael and I were very mature in college, so we were always very serious students. So yeah, that's why she would have to really brainstorm there. So let's see. So I want to talk about the fact that for anyone who is not familiar with you, that you are no longer in the San Francisco Symphony. Can you talk to us a little bit about that experience?
Well, I am one of those blessed musicians who was fortunate enough to have a run-in with embouchure dystonia, vocal embouchure dystonia. Probably about, let's see, I was actually playing in San Francisco for 7 full seasons, and probably some point in my 4th season, I think I just went too hard at it. Maybe I wasn't quite as in shape as I should have been at the beginning of the season. And no one really knows like when they did it or how they did it, but I just remember never feeling particularly great after that. I'd have ups and downs, but I just remember always feeling like I wasn't playing efficiently or something. I was always tired, or things were more difficult physically than they had always been. And I was still able to do the job and do it quite well, but but yeah, something in the back of my mind was just kind of like something's not quite right. And I'm not doing things the way I have always done things. Um and then um fast forward to I was pregnant. Actually, I was pregnant with my first daughter, Lila, who you guys heard a few minutes ago giggling. And I had an incident where I had ovarian torsion. My ovaries basically were twisting on themselves, and it's very, very painful.
Mm.
And it required required laparoscopic surgery to correct it. And it required me to take about a month off of the horn. And so when I came back to it, I remember feeling like my mid-low register, like right below the staff for horn players, was squirrely. Like there were a couple notes that I just never seemed to really be able to center anymore, no matter how much I kind of like did all the exercises that I had been taught and had been successful throughout my schooling to, find the center of a pitch. I could just never really center them anymore. And just very, very, very gradually over time, those notes, that 1 or 2 notes kind of spread into 3 or 4 notes that I just was having trouble centering. And um and again, like, and it's at a point where like navigating that part of the register, like it just kind of started to affect everything around it. And that feeling of not being efficient, not doing things easily in the way that I'd always done it, just kind of spread to kind of everything. And I was still able to do the job. And again, like when I finally, came out to my colleagues, they were surprised at what I was telling them. Um, but uh, but yeah, just it's a very slow creep. But um, if you're able to take a snapshot from when that first little inkling of something's not right to where like things just aren't, it's not even you're having trouble even creating a sound at that point at the end in those spots, and it's very specific where it happens and how it happens. um you'd be like, wow, how did I get to that point, like from that little note that wouldn't center to like just literally not being able to make a sound sometimes. um it was, it took the next 3 years for that to happen, and that takes a mental that's a mental load to bear too, right?
And were you talking to anyone or experts? What kind of research did you? It's like this has always been one of those scary stories that brass players tell each other about. Don't go into the woods because the boogeyman is in there.
Right. I honestly, like, for the first couple of years, I really just was like, I just thought I could fix it. I thought, I just tried to get into, my warm up went from being a very, and maybe this has something to do it with I used to have this warm up that was pretty, I could take 15 minutes to do it, or I could take 45 minutes to do it based on how much time I had, but it covered everything. I was able to hit the highs, hit the lows, hit the louds, hit the soft, articulation, multiple tonguing, slurs, um, and it got to where I was just kind of focusing more and more and more on just this stuff that I wasn't able to do. And maybe that has something to do with it too, because all of a sudden you're not really covering everything you need to do fundamentally, because you're trying so hard to get to the place where you're supposed to be in this one area. And anyone who has dystonia or has dealt with it will know that what happens is the more you work on the problem area, the worse it gets. And so it's just kind of like you're just going down the rabbit hole at that point. But now that I've completely forgot what your specific question was.
Did you reach out to any
Oh, right.
experts or consult anybody, or
Not until much closer to the end, I guess is my question, because for so much of that time I was like, I can fix this. Because I will say that, and in my schooling, that register was kind of the last part of my piece of my playing to kind of come together. That had been a problem area for me in the beginning. And so I feel like I was like, yeah, well, I know what to do in order to get this together, because this was a problem before and I know exactly what to do. And because by virtue of the fact that I was playing principal whenever I played, it really wasn't something that, was exposed on the job that much anyway. So I was like, this isn't a problem. This is something I work on at home, and at work, I'm playing in the high register. So it's not an issue. It's not a problem. And then toward the end, so I'll bring this back to, originally the original problem occurred after I took a month off of playing the horn with the problem with my pregnancy. And then the next time I took a significant amount of time off the horn was when I actually had the baby. And I had, the way it fell when she was born and our vacation time, I had 4 months off. And I, right before I went off on maternity leave, I was just like the most exhausted and worn out I'd ever been, because of course I'm playing with, 8 pounds of baby sitting on my lungs. The end of a season, so I'm just tired, and I'm like, okay, what I need is just a really long chunk of time off of the horn, and I'm gonna take it. I got 4 months. I'm not gonna even touch it for 2 months. And then I'm gonna take 2 months to just get back to fundamentals, get back to basics, and get ready to come back. And when I put the mouthpiece to my face after those 2 months off, nothing happened at all. And I thought it was just gonna feel fresh and like fantastic. I'd only be able to play for 3 minutes at a time, but that it was going to feel like the first time you put the mouthpiece to your face in 5th grade. And it didn't, and nothing happened. I couldn't play. And that's when I knew, like, oh my God. I started reaching out to my old teachers. I started reading like everything I could, and I did. The more I read, and I Googled dystonia. And the more I read about it, I was like, oh my God, I'm pretty sure this is what's going on here. Because it's a very specific thing. It happens a very specific way, and it happens the same way every time, like not being able to do whatever it is that you're having a problem with. And it's different for everybody. For me, it was descending through the mid-low register on the horn. All of a sudden, the muscles would just kind of seize up and stop. Like they would clench and they would seize up to where the vibration would just stop. And if I went really slowly, I could create sound, and if I would just gradually, slowly, chromatically go through that register, I could make the sound continue, uninterrupted. But if I tried to do anything quickly, anything with any kind of flow or any kind of natural just agility, it would just lock up on me. Only descending through the register when you're supposed to be trying to relax your aperture through the register. So my aperture just didn't want to relax at that point. Ascending through the register really wasn't a problem. But so yeah, that's when I started doing a lot of reading. And I remember thinking, don't read too much, don't think about it too much, analysis equals paralysis, like. But I knew in that whole year that I played another season on it after kind of coming to that conclusion for myself. Wow. And I reached out to to Sylvia, Sylvia Alamina, Andy. I'm sure you interact with her because you are in the same geographical area. I reached out to her, and she had the same diagnosis, and she was very hell bent on, you don't have dystonia. do this, try that. She just really wanted so much to believe that I could work my way out of it. And I reached out to my old teacher, Bill Vermeulen. Um, I tried to reach out to Jen Cagrice, and for whatever reason, we weren't able to connect, because I know some people who have had really great success working with her. Um, but I think I also knew that at the end, I knew I had a really great disability insurance policy. And I knew that for who I am and where I was in my life, I think I knew that if this was the diagnosis, I wasn't really interested in trying to um to get past it. So did I do a lot of work? Did I do a lot of work with professionals who could help me rehabilitate my playing? No, not that much.
Hmm. Wow, it's all so fascinating.
Do you have a do you have a sense of why you decided to go instead of that way?
Well, I just had my first child. Um, and I think I just I had been I'd been s- I played pretty much a season like with this huge black cloud of stress over my head. And I mean, even in the best of times, playing an orchestral job is hard and stressful. And it's fun too. But there wasn't any more of that for me that season. There wasn't any more fun. And I had this little baby, and I was not that, I was still a newlywed, and I just kind of like, is this the life I want to live for the next few years? Or, and who even knows? Like, who even knows how will I be able to fix this? And if I do, is it ever gonna it's always like, it's always gonna be at the back of my mind. Um, and I just was like, I don't know. Like I think I just if this is it, we'll just move on, and I'll enjoy being a mom, and I'll enjoy raising my child and being there for her and not being stressed out. And I think after having done it for a season, like not being able to put her to bed at night, and um I'm married to someone who's not a musician, so I definitely had a glimpse of things I was missing out on by living that music life and that lifestyle, and that the schedule that we live as musicians. And so I think I was just kind of like, I don't know if it's worth it, especially since I don't even know if there's no guarantee that this is fixable. I mean, there really isn't.
Yeah, there's a lot of people who have fixed it, and there's a lot of people who haven't.
Yeah.
Yeah, in
And I don't
spite of
know
its
but I
merits.
don't know of any orchestral players who have been able to fix it to the point where they're able to still do the job.
I play principal horn
And
in the
but
San
yeah,
Francisco Symphony. Yeah.
right. Like that maybe you can teach, you can do recitals, because there's a flow to it. Like, are you going to get
Yeah.
Botox injections in your face? Like,
Right.
and then they last for so long. Like, I have no idea how that would work to play an orchestral job,
Yeah.
you know, with that kind of thing going on.
Playing an orchestral job is like being at an airport where you have no control over anything, right? They tell you when the plane's taking off, when to get on, when not.
Yeah.
They're telling you when you're
Yeah.
getting bumped, and whereas
Mhm.
a recital, you can,
Oh, turbulence.
yeah,
You
you
always
can,
lose your bag.
Mhm.
yeah,
Right.
yeah. It's the definition of power. I can't imagine dealing with this. I can't imagine dealing with playing a whole season, especially on the horn, which I don't know if you've noticed, with the mouthpiece is like that big. It's like, I mean, I'm talking like playing, I don't know, second or fourth or something, not principal, in some really small regional orchestra. I can't imagine the mental toll that would be. But you were playing
Yeah.
associate principal in the San Francisco Symphony. That's one of the best symphony orchestras in the world, surrounded by just world class talent and pressure, and I can't wrap my head around it.
The thing that scared me the most was if anything ever happened to Bob. That was what like just made me like want to go hide in a dark cave. If anything would have happened to Bob and I would have had to step in, and that is the definition of my job,
Right.
is to be ready to take over if that were to happen. And thank God Bob was very healthy and strong. that season because it never happened. But
well done, Bob.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you. Yeah, that was what scared me the most because, you know exactly what you're going to be playing. And so I was able to look ahead and see if there was anything that was going to catch me, and I was able to, you figure out how to make things work, and you figure out where you can hide, where you can kind of like, get by. I skated by, man. I was so lucky that season. And but yeah, that was the thing that scared me the most. Like they'd be doing some huge piece on the second half that I wasn't playing, but I was like, oh, Bob, please just don't let anything happen, because I would not. It took a toll on my endurance. Like I couldn't even. There were things I just wouldn't have been able to get through. Like whether or not there was an exposed something that I would have exposed my problem area. I was just having trouble. I wasn't strong enough to get through things because I wasn't playing the right way anymore. Anywhere on the horn, regardless of whether it was my problem area, everything was all messed up.
There's a period of time between when you decided that you were going to leave the group and you leaving. Yeah. And so how did, I from my own perspective, I've fortunately always left organizations of my own free will. I just decided I needed to go do a different thing. And I used the period between when I made the decision and got out of that as an incubation period to get ready to do the thing that I was going to go do next. I'd made some decisions or was developing ideas or was going to strike out in a direction. Does that sort of resonate, or was it a different thing? You just couldn't wait to sort of step out of it? Or did you spend that time kind of incubating new ideas?
I would say well, there aren't any new ideas. I'm doing now what what I've been doing the entire time, and that's raising my kids. Mm-hmm. But I think that I spent that entire last season, most of the season I spent questioning, is this really what it is? Because I didn't have a definitive diagnosis until much closer to the end of that season. But by the time I got the definitive diagnosis, I knew that if that's what it was, I was out. So, but that entire season, my husband and I told him, I was like, Brian, there's this weird thing that musicians get sometimes, and it's a career ender, and I think I have it. So we kind of spent that year off and on, when I was like emotionally strong enough to talk about it. Like, what do we do? Like, what happens if this is what it is? Like, am I going to try to work it out? No, probably not. Are we going to stay here in California? Are we going to strike out someplace? Like, then we did the whole, like, where do we go?
Where you go?
Like, if we can live anywhere that we want, I mean, God, what musician has had that luxury of being able to choose where they live, right? I mean, you go where the work is. You go where you win the job, whether it's someplace that you would have ever wanted to live. I mean, I would have never thought I would have lived in Dallas, Texas. But so yeah, we kind of played the what if game, and that could be fun sometimes. And we talked about Colorado a lot. We both love the mountains. We both love, he's an avid snowboarder and rock climber and backpacker. And I love to ski, and, I do all that outdoorsy stuff with him. We talked about family, having a young child brings right into relief the fact that you have family close by to help or you don't. And in California, we did not. So we're like, do we move to the East Coast where we both have family? So I think that was the incubation. Not so much what am I going to do music wise, but what are we going to do life wise if this is what's happening. And then by the time I got the diagnosis, which was, I think I saw the first neurologist like in April of that year, and then I saw the second neurologist not long after that. And the first guy was kind of like, a general, like, he was like, yeah, kind of sounds like, I told him, I was like, I think this is what I have. He's like, yeah, I've heard of that. It kind of sounds like that's what you have. Most people don't come in with their own diagnosis. And I was like, well, okay.
Then don't charge me.
You don't sound like you know what you're talking about.
Are those real diplomas?
So then he was like, go see this movement specialist. And I had Kaiser Permanente. So at that point you have to like go through their channels before you can, go venture outside of network. But they did have a pretty well regarded movement specialist. And I saw her and she was like, yes, I think this is what you have. And I was like, oh, okay. And what is it specifically about what I've told you that makes you think that that's what it is? And she's like, well, the fact that it happens exactly the same way, exactly the same time, that's that's an indicator that it's dystonia and not something else. So at that point, I think that's when I told Bob that I needed to go see Stephen Frucht in New York. And so he took over the week for my repertoire that week, and luckily Dr. Frucht was like, he was about to leave town. He was like, I can fit you in on Friday. I was like, okay. So I bought a ticket and I flew out and I saw him and I played for him, and he took my history and I played a bit for him, and he asked me to do certain things over and over, and he was like, so what do you think's going on? And I was like, well, I'm not a doctor, but I've done a lot of reading and I think I have dystonia. And he just says like, yeah, I think you do too. And so that was like, he's the guy, like he's the guy, the buck stops there. And, it was this overwhelming sense of relief that I did get the diagnosis. Because I said to Brian, my husband, I was like, if I don't get this diagnosis at this point, I just have no idea what I'm gonna do. Because I would drive home in tears from concerts, like just about every night. Like I made it, like another day without being discovered. Just
Wow.
that crushing stress and that crushing like fear.
I can't imagine doing that for a week.
Yeah.
I mean, seriously. Like even if there was a known end point and it was only a week, like I can't imagine.
And knowing that the next day, okay, I did it tonight, but I have to go back and do it again tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day. So, I'm feeling it again. I'm feeling it in my body. That feeling of when he told me, I think you're right. I think you have dystonia too.
Well, sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just saying it was a huge relief, but it was also just so sad. Like I just was so sad,
I didn't mean to step on your toes. I just wanted to read this quote that you posted to Facebook, which is all about you being sad. And this wasn't something that I wanted to like loop back to in 10 minutes when you were no longer sad. It seems like we should stay there. This she posted to her Facebook page, and I asked, and she said it was fine to share it. But this is really powerful. I think this puts a fine point on it. She said, the first time I played Brahms 2 was in 1995 with the Northwestern University Summer Orchestra. I played it countless times thereafter, mostly on third, but a couple of times on principal too. Now, some 26 years later, I sit listening to it in the Costco parking lot with tears streaming down my face, awash in the feelings of attachment and love I harbor for this piece after all this time. It is still a violent punch to the gut to remember that I will never make these glorious sounds in the midst of a world-class orchestra again. There are times when I miss the music so much it physically hurts. Yeah, to read that was just heartbreaking. I mean, I wanted to thank you because that post was a gift, because sometimes I'm able to play. I don't have any injuries right now, and sometimes it can feel like a job. Like it can for all of us at times. But hearing how I already knew this, but hearing you put into words like how much it would mean to you to get to do that one more time, right? To just do that one more time, like gave me perspective that only somebody like you putting it into that fine of a point is going to get through to somebody like me, because busy going to the next thing. So how often do you get overcome with emotions about this? Is it a frequent thing?
It's not that frequent because I don't put myself into the situation very often. I don't. It's
going on a dopey podcast to talk about it extensively. I have to say, for the record, I've found myself crying in Costco parking lots quite a lot in my life as well. Just for what
Usually
it's
they're
worth.
tears of happiness because I love Costco. That's a happy place.
No, it's because somebody got the 90 pack of toilet paper before me. I just sit there and cry.
Oh, goodness.
What am I gonna do now?
What now? What? No, I'm really.
Guess I have to keep up that newspaper subscription. Yeah, I would say that for the first couple of years, to be honest, after leaving the orchestra, I just didn't listen to classical music at all.
Wow.
And because when I did, I would just lose it.
Oh.
And it's funny because I've been able to more recently. I put it on for my kids in the car. Like I want them to hear it. I want it to be a part of their lives. I don't necessarily want them to I want them to learn an instrument, but I'm like, don't go into classical music. Just appreciate it. Buy tickets. Buy concert tickets.
Hey, quit practicing. I hear you in there.
Or just sit in the middle of the violin section. As long as your bow's going the right direction,
Right,
they're not losing sleep.
Exactly.
They're just not.
But then, it wasn't like, it was a few weeks before that. I don't remember what it was. Every now and then they'll ask, they'll be like, Mommy, when you played, or, they'll ask me something about it. And then they'll say, we want to see you, or we want to hear you. And I just wanted to get out of there at the end. I didn't go to the archives and make recordings of some of the programs that I was particularly proud of. And that's actually something that I'm probably going to hit my colleagues up at some point to be like, can you do me a favor? But we put on the Mahler keeping score that we recorded my first year in San Francisco. We put that on for the girls one morning before school, and I was a mess the rest of the day. Like it opens up with the orchestra like playing the finale of Mahler 1. I mean, God, if you can think of an amazing moment in the literature for horns, that's
It's
top
on the
3,
short list.
right? So I mean, it messes me up. And so I don't listen to a lot of classical music so that I don't have to feel that. And sometimes I'm able to and enjoy it, and then sometimes it just messes me up for the rest of the day.
Wow.
Well, in the name of awkward segues, I want to talk to you about the Mary Pappas School of Music at Duquesne University in beautiful and sunny Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, which is neither today. It's kind of gross out. But if you click on the link in the show notes, you will be taken to a site where you can find out all of the ways you can be involved in music, specifically brass playing. At Duquesne University, we've got a ton of former guests who are on the faculty there, some very great opportunities, and a special thanks to Jim, Job of the Butt, Nova, for making that possible.
Job of the Butt?
I know him. I know Jim Nova.
There you go.
You do?
Wow,
See?
we're sorry about that.
Would you lose a bet?
Yeah.
So we always belittle our sponsors.
Yes,
and we can't make fun of Duquesne because it's a nice place, and there's great people teaching there.
And they have
Jim's the one
lawyers.
who made it happen.
Jim
and they have lawyers.
Parker don't have lawyers.
No, that's a good point.
They don't have lawyers. I want to completely segue to something else here, but I first want to say that this kind of goes without saying that because you were in the Dallas Symphony and almost won principal of St. Louis, and that you were in the San Francisco Symphony, that you were obviously very good at the horn, but my goodness, did magical things come out of your bell. I mean, yeah, just exquisite artistry, like just absolutely like world class. And it's a real loss for all of us that you're not making those sounds anymore, but I feel very lucky that I got to share a stage with you, and that your run was as long as it was, even if it doesn't maybe feel like it at times. But it's So
and it was 15 years. I got to do what I set out to do, and I do feel grateful for that. I feel lucky that I was able to do it because a lot of people don't get to.
Yeah.
And I do want to just bring it back. After posting that that Facebook post, a good friend of mine who was a violinist in Dallas, she called me and left a message for me, and she's just like, I just want to remind you that for every Brahms 2, like, think of the thousands of Pops concerts you played. And like, I told her, I was like, that was the most helpful thing of all the heartfelt messages that I got in response to that post. Things akin to what you just said, Andrew, which feels great. And maybe we post these things because it helps, it's a little stroke to the ego. Like, people remember that I don't remember that it once upon a time sounded good and felt good, but other people remember. But that was so helpful to me because it's true. Like, if I'm honest, I was playing associate principal in the San Francisco Symphony Orchestra that plays a lot of like new music, and I played a lot of that stuff.
Look at her face, man. Wow. We played a lot of
that stuff. I'm just saying, like, the meat and potatoes, the reason that when you're between your freshman and sophomore year of college and the first time you get to play Brahms 2, and it's like a religious moment. It's like a moment of worship at the altar, and it's all so fresh and new. And it's like, you think that that's what it's going to be like. And it's not. Like, yes, you get those moments and they are amazing. But there's a lot of in-between stuff that's like, man, I could leave this. Take it or leave it, I'd leave this. I would put a match to this. I don't want to play this ever again. Or there's some, like, in Dallas in particular, we played a lot of Pops, and, some weeks were more fun than others. But, it's just like, there's a lot of stuff that is not what you went into it for. And that was helpful. That was really, really, really helpful.
Yeah.
Like, it's about balance and perspective, and I needed that at that moment.
Yeah, that was a nice gesture for sure. Yeah. Hey, remember, this job can kind of suck too. Yeah, miss you. XOXO. Yeah. Yeah, it's usually like, remember the great times. You're like, hey Nicole, no, remember the crappy times too, and then you'll be less sad. So you're moved to tears by going to Costco. I am too, as Lance said, because I hate that place. I like being able to get, like, there's nothing more American than just like this gigantic warehouse full of pallets of crap that you don't need that you can get for
Andy, you do need it. Well, you just don't know it yet until you get there and see it.
It's like this gigantic corporation who's just like bludgeoning suppliers, like, because of the leverage they have from the quantity, and then we get to profit from it. I like it, but but going in there is, oh my goodness. Yeah. So if I had seen you, I would have assumed that you were also in that parking lot. I would have assumed that you were dreading just going and dealing with fellow humans. Yeah, but you were actually having a very poignant moment. So the last thing that I want to talk to you about is the cakes that you make. I'm laughing because the first time I saw a photo of one of these cakes on your Facebook feed, it looked so extravagant and so complicated, so amazing, that I just assumed as I was scrolling that was like a cake that you had purchased. And then as I was like, wait a minute. And I was like, wait, she made that? What the hell? So how did you get into, and do you mind if we, since you only have them on Facebook, do you mind if we post one of the photos like on Pedal Note Media?
Yeah, that's fine. That's
all
fine.
Right. So go to pedalnotemedia.com/cake. We're going to throw one photo up there, and we can throw a link to that in the show notes. But talk to us about these cakes, because they're unbelievable. How'd you get into this?
Well, I've always loved cooking, and I've always loved baking. And in fact, my colleagues, especially in Dallas, I didn't do it as much in San Francisco because, everybody's vegan and, eating healthy. They weren't quite as appreciative. They weren't as appreciative.
I was dripping with like polite disdain. Like, it was just, that was.
I'm sorry, but there's butter and eggs in my cakes. There's gluten too. So, I just love baking cakes, and in my entire time in Dallas, pretty much I was single and I had a lot of time on my hands, and I would bake cakes. And who needs an entire cake in their house? I would bake cakes and stuff, and I would take it to work. And oh my God, in Dallas, like, I will say those you could put a plate of like a beautifully artistically like poo on the table, and those people would like at break they'd fly back to the bake room and be like, this looks good. And it'd be gone. I'm like, that wasn't her best effort, but not bad. Like they loved it.
That's the other thing about those violinists who I hate. They can eat cake while they play, and it
Right.
won't do anything to their
Yeah.
instruments.
Yeah.
So anyway, sorry, continue.
They might have to like put a little extra rosin or something.
Yeah.
No, but I just love to bake, and so I'd bake a cake and I'd bring it in for the break room. And you know, at that point I just wanted to make cakes that tasted really good, and I wasn't into all the like excessive decorating or whatever. I just made a cake and brought it in, and then you know, I don't even know. I guess I just kind of like you start looking at Pinterest and oh man, that's cool. Or you start watching some of these baking shows and seeing what people are doing to make these cakes look really cool, or like the cakes that look like there's something else, like a can of beer or you know a roll of toilet paper. A lot of Costco, like last year, a lot of people were making those cakes. I can't give you toilet paper, but I made you this cake and it looks like toilet paper. So I just thought that was really cool, and I was like, I could do that. How did I do that? And I just think there's a certain part of the mind that's kind of like, you know, how did they do that? I'm gonna try to do that. So I just started like I got some piping tips, and then you know I bought some fondant, and I just started messing around with it, and then you know friends started being like, I would buy a cake from you. Would you make a cake? For you know, and I was like, no, I'll make it for you know for my kid's birthday. And I was like, no, I'll make it the cake. That'll be our gift because everyone knows you don't need another plastic toy in your house. So it's a gift to you and your kid. Not another toy for you to have to clean up.
Buy a
And
pallet of them for your friend at Costco.
exactly, and a cake that you don't have to make or buy. So that's kind of like what I do, and then. And since these are kids that I know, these are my kids' playmates, they hold a special place in my heart and I know them. So I'm like, okay, what are they into? I want to make this like a personalized cake for them. So yeah, I don't know. I just like it's fun. It's like I need a creative outlet, and baking a cake is more scientific, but decorating it is definitely more of a creative outlet. So and
Well, so
each one I try to learn a new technique. I try to learn how to do a new cool thing that looks awesome. So it's fun.
it seems like this is the main creative outlet for you at this point. Is
Yeah.
that accurate? Yeah.
Yeah, I would say so. I have a friend who started a chocolate company, and so I go in and I help her out, and I do like a lot of the I design. I do a lot of the you paint the chocolate molds with colored cocoa butter, and so I do a lot of that for her. So that's another little creative outlet. But this is all mine, you know.
Wow. I I will say that that I'm my parents are almost fully. They've both gotten both their shots. My mother, who got her second shot last, is almost 2 weeks out. As soon as that happens, my
Mhm.
son and I are going up to visit them in
Nice.
like in a little less than 2 weeks.
Awesome.
But I saw that you lived in New York, and I didn't know where the town that you lived in was, and I was like seeing if I was like if that was in like Westchester County, which it's not, like I was going to be driving right by and I was going to like
Uh-huh.
be like, I was going to demand that I pay you for it. But I was like, because this month is like or next month is my wife's birthday, my son's birthday. I was like,
Oh.
yeah, we need one of those. But yeah, you're kind of on the wrong side of
No,
that.
getting on and off the island is not fun. I
It's
wouldn't recommend it unless you have to.
not with a 6-year-old in the car. Yeah. So like, yeah,
Although
that,
cake is a good incentive.
yeah. The whole thing is just trashed. It's like, we could, I mean, it still tastes amazing, but we could have just gone to Costco, I guess, if it's going to look like that by the time we get to Grammy and Gramps' house. Well, this has been wonderful, Nicole. Thank you so much for joining us. This is you've got an amazing story. Thank you for being so generous with,
Yeah,
with
I just appreciate you sharing that.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. And it was good to have Lila as well, so she can
Mhm.
add this to her performance credits. So we are going to have Nicole stick around for a bonus episode, as we do with every guest. And so if you would like to learn more about that, you can go to patreon.com/thebrassjunkies. And if you become a Patreon patron of the show, then you instantly get access to a lot of bonus episodes and a lot of other regular bonus content. And we asked Nicole to not share, to save most of the good stuff for the bonus episode. So that's why it was, a little boring, but we asked her to be. So we're just trying to monetize this. That's all. We're not trying to make the world a better place. So Lance, is there anything that I'm forgetting?
Oh, lots.
my vision board.
Your vision board. Yeah.
All right. And that is going to do it for this episode of The Brass Junkies. You've been listening to The Brass Junkies on the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network. If you would like to hear the bonus episode featuring today's guest, please visit patreon.com/thebrassjunkies to learn how you can support the show and instantly access all bonus materials, as well as gain access to a special patron-only Facebook group. The Brass Junkies is produced by the amazing, wonderful, and truly inspirational Will Houchin. The theme music was composed by Fernando Dados and performed by Andrew Hitz and Lance LaDuke. We are at Pray4Jens on Twitter and Instagram and have a Facebook page at facebook.com/Pray4Jens. You can find out more about the Brass Junkies and all the other Pedal Note Media podcasts at pedalnotemedia.com. This has been a presentation of the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network.